our answer to the question of the platform debate will be no. Secularism is not the solution to communal conflict in India. It is not part of the solution. Now, there are a number of reasons why we think this is the case. And I'll just briefly introduce the most important reasons in the next 20 minutes. Now, first of all, as we all know, at the empirical level, the implementation of secularism since 1947 in India has not led to the diminishing, let alone disappearance, of conflicts between different religious and cultural communities. If anything, the frequency and intensity of riots and tensions between these communities appears to have risen significantly. Naturally, one could argue that this has to do with the fact that real secularism was never implemented, and some people have argued this, but I won't go into that now. However, there's a deeper problem and a more general problem. See, the belief that the model of the secular state, which was originally formulated in post-Reformation Europe, can help solve communal conflicts in India, is based in a specific assumption. That assumption is that conflicts occurring in India are of the same nature, or at least have a similar structure, as the so-called wars of religion or religious conflicts in Europe. Both are taken to be instances of religious conflict. However, it's completely unclear which properties, which characteristics make a conflict into a religious conflict, as opposed to, say, an ethnic conflict, or a social conflict, or a political conflict. I mean, we don't know what the structure is which communal violence, communal conflicts in India are supposed to share with the kinds of conflicts between Protestants and Catholics, Christians and Muslims that we've seen in Europe. No one has ever demonstrated that the conflicts between Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs and Christians in India are similar to those between Protestants and Catholics in Europe. And the prima facie evidence indicates that these conflicts are of a completely different nature. The conflicts in India have little to do with rivalry between different religions or the conflicting truth claims of different doctrines, while those in Europe between different Christian confessions were based in conflicting truth claims and a conflict of religious doctrines. Now, the situation in Europe was one where different confessional churches were developing, and all of them, whether Lutheran, Calvinist or Catholic, claimed to be the true Christian church. Now, if the state had a privileged relationship with any of these Christian confessions, it would choose a side in a conflict of truth claims, and then the state would not be able to manage conflicts among its citizens belonging to different religions. In fact, it would end up imposing the beliefs of one of those confessional churches on the others. It would persecute and discriminate. And therefore, it was said, the state ought always to be secular, separated from religion, and religiously neutral. Now, what I think has happened in normative theories of secularism is that this internal problem of Christian Europe has been projected universally as though it's a general human predicament. It is said that different religious groups in society hold different beliefs to be true, and therefore the state should be neutral or equidistant towards the truth claims of all these belief systems. In other words, the model of the secular state comes with its own inbuilt conception of what a plural society looks like. And that conception is not based on research into the actual situation in different plural societies. It precedes any such analysis. Therefore, insofar as secularism intends to provide a universal model to address the problem of religious diversity in society, it is bound to fail because it suffers from a profound ignorance of the structure of plural societies other than those of the modern West. Now, in India, I think this problem becomes especially clear because the diversity in society here encompasses two very different kinds of cultural phenomena. Those that are generally called Semitic or Abrahamic religions, like Christianity and Islam, on the one hand, and traditions, or what I would like to call traditions, like the variety of Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, Sikh traditions, on the other hand. And these two classes, these two kinds, have very different properties. Because of that fundamental difference, it does not make sense to speak of religion, religious diversity, religious conflict in Indian society, as though its diversity merely concerns different manifestations of one and the same phenomenon, called religion. Now let me briefly explain the fundamental difference between the two kinds. Christianity and Islam, on the one hand, view religion as a matter of truth and falsity. They claim that they are the unique revelations of the biblical God to humanity, and that therefore they are true. They believe that there is one true God who is the creator and sovereign of the universe, and everything that happens in the universe expresses his will or purpose. In other words, this God has a plan, and the universe is the embodiment of this plan. Now, according to these religions, their respective doctrine is the true self-disclosure in which the biblical God reveals his will or plan to humanity. And only through a genuine belief in this doctrine and a total surrender to this divine will can human beings hope for salvation. Now, with this self-description also comes a description of the other. Other religions, traditions, are seen as heresies, false religion, or idolatry. Now, even though that terminology is not always invoked today, Islam and Christianity do share a common standpoint. Fundamentally, they view religions as doctrines and attribute truth predicates to these different doctrines. Therefore, they also view different religions as rivals over truth. Now, on the other hand, the many Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, and Sikh traditions do not approach religion as an issue of truth and falsity. They do not view traditions, different traditions, as competing doctrines, but as the ancestral practices that characterize a community. And these practices are not justified in terms of a particular set of doctrines or scriptural sanctions. Rather, they are continued simply because they are transmitted by the ancestors of a community. As a consequence, Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, and Sikh traditions do not ascribe truth predicates to such traditions. And they also do not view different traditions, including Islam and Christianity, as rivals over religious truth. Maximally, the various traditions are seen as paths in the ongoing human search for truth. Now we can give some historical evidence, but I think that is more suitable for the debate itself, so I'll skip that. Now, the differences between these two classes have also generated different basic values. And the universal truth claim made by Christianity and Islam gives rise to a dynamic of proselytization. When the biblical God reveals his plan, it covers the whole of humankind. And those who receive this revelation should try to convert others into accepting the message in this divine revelation, self-disclosure. So proselytization is an intrinsic value of these religions. Now, the view of Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and other traditions, on the contrary, implies that such traditions are upheld not because they contain some exclusive truth binding the believer to God, but because they make some community into a community. And any attempt at interfering with the tradition of a community from the outside will be seen as illegitimate, since all traditions are part of a human quest for truth. And that leads to a very fundamental clash between two basic values. On the one hand, that of proselytization, on the other hand, that of non-interference.